All right, so we're still in the ratio unit. We're going to be in this for a while. Okay? So we've talked about ratios. We've talked about equivalent ratios. Okay, so today we're going to move on to what's called proportions. And proportions can help us solve all types of problems. I always tell my kids, okay, if you encounter a problem that you don't know how to solve, try setting it up in a proportion, because about 80 to 90% of the time, a proportion will solve it. Okay? So, but you really kind of know what a proportion is, because we worked with them last week. Okay? A proportion right here are two ratios that are set equal to each other. Okay? A proportion is where you have two ratios and they're set equal to each other. So if I give you a ratio like 3 to 4, I'm going to set it equal to another ratio. Will somebody give me an equivalent ratio to 3 to 4, Jada?
6 to 8.
6 to 8. We did this last week, right? We found equivalent ratios.
Thank you.
Well, guess what? This is a proportion. It's two ratios that are set equal to each other. Okay? So to read this, you would say it's not 3/4 equals 6/8, because these aren't fractions. Okay? It's 3 is to 4 as 6 is to 8. Or you could say 3 to 4 is the same as 6 to 8. Okay? So it is a proportion if the two ratios are equal to each other. Now, remember when we were writing ratios last week and writing equivalent ratios last week, I said before you write your ratio, you need to write it in what first? No. When we're writing ratios, write it in what first before you use numbers? Words, right? This becomes very, very important when we start using ratios and proportions to solve problems. So very important is to write in words first. Okay? This is important because you do not want to get your numbers mixed up. If you get your numbers mixed up, you're not going to get the right answer. Okay? If we write our proportion or our ratios in words first, you're going to know exactly where to put your numbers, and I'm going to show you this. Okay? So, if you look at your first example, it says Chase raked 3 bags of leaves in 30 minutes.
Nice.
How long will it take him to rake 7 bags? Okay? Now I realize that some of you can do this mentally, but I want to show you how to use a proportion to solve it. Okay? So the first thing I ask are, what two things are we comparing here?
3 to 30.
No, in words. What two things are we comparing? Bags to minutes, right? So you're going to write that in words first. Bags to minutes.
I remember this.
Yeah, you remember this? We did it last week,
I know.
right? So we're comparing bags to minutes. So our first ratio here is 3 bags of leaves in 30 minutes. So you have 3 bags in 30 minutes. Here's your first ratio. Now when we set it up in a proportion to solve it, okay, over here it says how long will it take him to rake 7 bags? Well, where would I put my 7?
On the top.
How do you know that? You're right. How do you know that?
The bags.
Because bags are on top. That's why we write it in words first. Okay? The bags are on top, so we're going to put our 7 on top. Now, what do we put in place of a number that we're trying to find?
Variable.
A variable. Good. I don't care which variable you use. I'm using X. Right? That is a proportion. Okay? And we're going to solve this proportion to get our answer. So how do we solve? Right? If I look, there's not an easy way to get 3 to 7, right?
Right.
By multiplying. So your very first step here is you're going to cross multiply. Okay? Our first step in solving a proportion is we're going to cross multiply. Okay, so when we do that, if you look, I'm going to take 3 times x, which gives me what? 3x equals, now you cross multiply here. 7 times 30, 210. Okay, so that's our first step. We cross multiply. Doesn't this look really familiar? Haven't we solved these before? Isn't this a one-step equation? Isn't this an equation that we have to solve?
Yeah.
What's our goal of solving an equation? What's our goal when we solve an equation?
To define the variable.
We have to figure out what the variable is, right? We gotta isolate that variable. How do we do this?
Distribute. Wait, no.
Distribute.
Wait.
No, how do you solve this equation? Okay, so we gotta isolate our variable. How do we get our variable by itself? No, there's no parentheses. We can't use the distributive property. This is a one-step equation. How do you solve this equation? This is review. We just finished algebra. Right. We got to divide each side by 3. There's no distributing. There's no parentheses. Okay? So after you cross multiply, your second step is to solve the equation by dividing. Okay? After you cross multiply, you guys know how to solve equations. You did very well on it. Okay? We divide each side by 3. 210 divided by 3 gives me what, Jacob? 70. So what does this 70 stand for? What's it mean in terms of this problem?
How many minutes it took them to rake?
Right, it took us 70 minutes to rake 7 bags.
Oh, yeah. 10 minutes for a bag.
Right. This one would be kind of easy to do mentally, okay? Because you could look, 1 bag in 10 minutes, right? That's fine. Yeah.
The cross multiply thing is called butterfly.
No, it's not.
That's all.
Not in middle school, it's not. Okay?
Butterfly.
All right, so let's move on to the second example right here.
Be like.
It says 3 t-shirts for $17 and 8 t-shirts for X dollars. So we need to write that as a proportion. Okay? What 2 things are we comparing?
T-shirts to dollars.
T-shirts to money, right? Good. Okay? So we've got t-shirts to money. We write it in words first.
Is there money?
Okay? So what's our first ratio? 3 t-shirts for $17.
That's expensive.
Okay? Now, our next says 8 t-shirts. So where does my 8 go?
At the top.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because it's good for t-shirts.
Because that's where t-shirts are, right?
Yeah.
That's why we write it in words first. What goes on the bottom?
8 times 17,
X.
right?
Money.
An X. Or a money sign, whatever you want. That's what we're trying to figure out. Okay? So our first step to solve this proportion, because we can't really do this mentally,
Not
right?
really.
There's not an easy number we can multiply to get 8.
Nope.
So we cross multiply. 3 times X
3x.
is 3X equals 8 times 17. You can use your calculator. Right?
136.
136. So we did step 1. Okay?
136.
So now, how do we solve this?
You divide.
Divide by what?
3. Isolate your variable. And
Isolate your variable, right?
Divide 136 by 3.
Divide each by 3.
Or divide.
Now,
Cancel.
okay, so you're left with, I'm going to write over here, X equals, when you take 136 divided by 3, you get a big long decimal number, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay? But what are we trying to find?
No, not really.
We're trying to find money.
Money.
So we have to round to the nearest cent. Okay, which is the nearest hundred. So Lauren, what do you get?
45.
to the nearest hundredth to the nearest cent. So it's going to be $45.33. So what's this 45.33 mean? What's that mean? How much? What?
How much would it be for 8 t-shirts?
How much it would be for 8 t-shirts. Okay, good. Now, for this next example here, 44 miles per gallon, X miles per 7 gallons. I just want you to set that up. Write it in words and set your proportion up. You don't have to solve it yet. Okay, write it in words, set your proportion up, and we'll check it. Think, what two things am I comparing?
Miles to gallons, right? You want us to write it in numbers too?
Yeah, write in your numbers, okay? So the two things we're comparing are what?
Miles to gallons.
Miles to gallons.
And then
And look, right here it says 44 miles per gallon.
So 44.
44 over 1. You guys see that? Why is it over 1?
Because it's per gallon.
Because it's per gallon. So you've got to know that that means per 1 gallon. So you have 44 miles per 1 gallon. Okay? There's your first ratio. Then it says X miles per 7 gallons. Where's my 7 go?
On the bottom.
On the bottom, because gallons are on the bottom. Good. So your X is on top, 7's on bottom. Very good. Girls. Okay, now what do we do in order to solve this? Cross multiply. So 44 times 7. Where's your calculator? It's fine. We get 308 equals 1 times X is 1X. Now what?
308 divided by 1.
Right, you divide each side by 1, right? So good. And when you do that, okay,
It's 308.
you get 308 equals X. Does it matter that the X is on the other side?
No.
Not at all. Okay, so what's this 308 stand for?
Represents how many miles you can drive for 7 gallons.
Good. How many miles on 7 gallons of gas? Okay?
That's true.
All right, the very last example I want you to try to solve all on your own. Now, I want you to round to the nearest hundredth because you're going to get a decimal.
Can we look it over the back?
Sure. Okay, and you can use a calculator. Round to the, I've got the proportion already set up for you. I just want you to solve it.
Wait, is that small enough one?
Yeah. And if you can't see it because it kind of got messed up here, I will write it up here so you can see it. Some of them got cut off. 18, or X is to 18, as 2 is to 7.
But it's flipped.
It doesn't matter where your X is, you still follow the same steps. You still cross multiply, and you still solve the equation. Okay? Doesn't matter where your X is in the proportion. It's a good question.
Numbers.
Huh? I said round to the nearest hundredth.
Oh. So now to cross multiply.
Okay, so yeah, cross multiply. What's X times 7? 7X, right? Equals 18 times 2,
Which is
36. Can you take it from there? What do I have to do now?
so
How do I solve this equation?
Just divide 7 divide. Oh, we have to actually variable, I guess.
Right.
Just divide both by X.
Divide each side by 7. And you're left with X over here. So then 36 divided by 7. If I round to the nearest hundredth, what do I get? 5.14. Okay. Great thing is you guys are going to be allowed to use calculators on all of these. Okay. But this is really kind of the same thing we did last week. We're just finding an equivalent ratio to the first ratio that we're given. But now we can have decimals, and now we can have fractions. Okay? Any questions over this? You guys feel like it's kind of easy or not? We're getting ready to get some practice, but we need some practice, right? Okay.